What's up, everybody? On today's show, what are some of the big takeaways from this week of fall camp across the SEC? And an Alabama wide receiver said the offense will score how many points per week? Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to Everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more throughout the summer. FanDuel's hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. Something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. All right, we're going to do a quick loop around the SEC. We won't hit on every team, but just some general takeaways going on around most of the schools as they continue their fall practices. And we stop off in Tuscaloosa over at Alabama as wide receiver Germie Bernard, coming in as a transfer from Washington, spoke to reporters this week, and obviously a lot of familiarity with head coach Kalen DeBoer and a lot of the assistant coaches on the staff that came over from Washington, as he was a starter there for the Huskies as they won the Pac-12 championship and went on to a college football playoff national championship game berth. But Germie Bernard, speaking with reporters this week, asked about the offense. He said, quote, "I think this offense is going to put up 40 plus points a game, in my opinion." The offense he played with at Washington under Kalen DeBoer averaged 36 points per game, but the Huskies did have 6 games where they scored 40 or more points. Of course, more talent here at Alabama now, and he said the chemistry between he and quarterback Jalen Milroe has been good. He said, "We're hooking up on the field, finding the timing of our throws. We communicate through practice, but off the field, we watch film together. We just see where each other's head is at, so when we're on the practice field, we're executing that, and it translates well." Of course, Nick Sheridan in the fold, Jamarcus Shepard, along with Kalen DeBoer. Very wide receiver-friendly offense. Bernard said it is the scheme that allows a lot of receivers to be able to make plays. He said it's just the way that they scheme defenses and how they're able to get us open. They're able to get us opportunities to touch the football. So we'll see what this offense looks like, but seems like, and look, we're not saying he put like a guarantee on it, but he said, "I think this offense is going to score 40 plus points a game, in my opinion," making sure we put that in there. But Germie Bernard, if you don't, those words couldn't come back to bite you. So we'll see. But look, it has all the ingredients, right? I mean, Kalen DeBoer, offensive-minded coach with Nick Sheridan, with Jamarcus Shepard, system they ran at Washington, with arguably better talent at Alabama. We shall see. But we'll save that quote for later in the year. We'll check back in on it. He might be right. We'll see. Over at Auburn, their wide receiver core has undergone a overhaul, if you would say. And one of the biggest additions just got in there recently, one of the freshman signees from this recruiting class, Perry Thompson, the third highest rated player in Auburn's class. Caught it for over 1,700 yards and 16 touchdowns in his final 2 seasons at Foley High in Alabama. But he is getting rave reviews so far. Fellow senior wideout Sam Jackson said, quote, "You got a guy like Perry Thompson who's just big and strong. He hasn't even grown into his body yet, and he's just throwing guys off him and catching it. It's crazy to be who I am and see who these guys are. It's almost amazing. We're in the SEC, and that is what the SEC brings." Again, that's Sam Jackson talking about the incoming freshman Perry Thompson. Said he's throwing guys off of him. Thompson is 6'3", 222 pounds. Started making plays early on during the start of fall camp for Auburn. Of course, Cam Coleman, the big stud that made all the news throughout the spring and expected to be one of the big-time targets. But receivers coach Marcus Davis, talking about Perry Thompson, said he's 220, super powerful, big, fast, strong kid. He's just naturally got the ability to make plays, too. So Peyton Thorne, put up or shut up time, man. You got a bunch of stud receivers around you. Time to make this offense go over at Auburn. By the way, I've seen a couple of writers saying their opinions are maybe changing on Auburn now, seeing what they look like in practice, saying they might be a little bit better than maybe we were thinking initially. Over at LSU, offense coordinator Joe Sloan gushing over sophomore running back Caleb Jackson, talking about his power and his improvements over the past offseason in pass protection. Called him a violent beast, gotten bigger, now up to 235 pounds. It sounds like a more well-rounded running back. Here was Joe Sloan. He said, everybody saw last year Caleb when he was able to get the football. He's a punishing back, hard to tackle, gets his pads down on contact, and he's able to drive his feet. He's a powerful, powerful human. And what you're seeing now is that he's more of a complete running back. So look, if Caleb Jackson can improve in that category and pass protecting as well, he's going to play a lot of football for LSU this year. And we already knew he was a violent runner, but see what other components he could add to his game. Meanwhile, in recruiting news for LSU, they picked up a commitment on Thursday from 2025 cornerback CJ Jim Coyley. He's rated a 4-star prospect and the number 9 player in the state of Tennessee, according to the 24/7 composite, number 32 safety overall, and number 348 prospect overall in the class of 2025. And that gives LSU now 20 verbal commitments for their 2025 recruiting class, which ranks number 3 in the country in the composite. Over at Arkansas, freshman running back Braylon Russell catching some eyes and expected to play a big role in the Arkansas running game this year. Starting running back Jaquindon Jackson has been out with a concussion, and the team's leading returning rusher Rashad Dubinion has been out with knee swelling. And so Braylon Russell getting an opportunity to show what he can do. He had a couple of notable plays with a 15-yard run and an 8-yard touchdown run in red zone work during Thursday's scrimmage. 6'1", 253 pounds, is a 4-star prospect, and was ranked the number 24 running back nationally, the number 4 overall prospect from Arkansas. Sam Pittman telling the media, he's going to help us. He's going to be in the rotation. He's a good player. He's a hard runner, but he's also faster than what you might think. And he's also got a bad-to-the-bone stiff arm. So keep an eye out for freshman running back Braylon Russell at Arkansas. Over at Florida, they're looking for some help off the edge, and redshirt junior edge rusher Tyreek Sapp is in a heated competition at the defensive end spot with Justice Boone. Talked about their competitive nature with each other. He said it feels like almost like we got so close it became a telepathic relationship. When he gets on the field, I feel like I almost know what he's about to do. I can kind of feel me playing through him. I just love it when he's out there because me and him, we give that same effort. He goes hard. He has a motor. He understands the game. And those are two guys that are fighting for the same spot coming off the edge. So cool to hear that both those guys like playing with each other, like to see the other one have success, and that whole we over me mentality could certainly prove well for Florida on that defensive end spot. But watch Tyreek Sapp and Justice Boone. Let's see what kind of season both those guys have. Over at Georgia, keep an eye on Will Muschamp. Of course, he took his first full-time position in coaching at West Georgia back in 1998. And his streak of coaching kind of coming to an end this year. He steps down from his position as co-defensive coordinator and safeties coach. As he's now a defensive analyst at Georgia. Made that decision back in January. His youngest son, Whit, is a freshman over at Vanderbilt and wants to be around to watch him play. So he took on a lesser role, but will allow him to still be involved in the game planning and that sort of thing with Georgia. But T-Rob coming over from Alabama, replacing Muschamp on the staff at Georgia. They're very close. They've coached together a total of 12 seasons. Muschamp was seen at practice this week, assisting an individual player working off to the side of his position group while rehabbing an injury. Of course, NCAA rule changes no longer restrict staff members or analysts in their ability to help on the field. But it remains to be seen what Muschamp's role come Saturdays this fall will be. But you got to think he's going to be maybe traveling to go see his son. Maybe he'll help throughout game prep during the week. Maybe not be around every Saturday. We shall see. Over Kentucky, freshman running back Jason Patterson impressing the coaching staff during spring ball and continue to do so this fall. He was 5'10", 203 pounds, was a 3-star running back from the state of Florida in this year's recruiting class. Does not talk very much, but they said he likes to practice. It could make an impact as a true freshman. Kentucky OC Bush Hamden saying this week he would be in my office throughout July with his pads on, just getting catches on these jugs machines. Heard about 6 o'clock at night. It's a guy who doesn't say a lot. We always know what those upperclassmen are. The guys do a lot of media coverage, but these younger guys could step in with a little less experience, and they could become game changers for us. Of course, we expect guys like Chip Trainum, the Ohio State transfer, probably going to be the starting running back for Kentucky. But they got some other guys in there like Demi Sumo coming over, Jamarian Wilcox, but a couple of freshmen. Jason Patterson's name has come up a couple times. In fact, Mark Stoops mentioned him to us a couple of weeks ago. Hampton did say they want to hand the ball off close to 30 times a game. So we'll see what Jason Patterson factors into in that role. Over at Missouri on Thursday, August 29th, Mizzou, they will face Murray State in Columbia. So that's coming up just a couple of weeks away. It'll be here before we know it. And they were out of the practice field yesterday. And according to multiple reports, looks like quarterback Drew Pine could be solidifying himself as the backup to Brady Cook. He threw some passes during team drills that a lot of people think looks like the reliable and capable backup. During 2-on-2 and 3-on-3 drills, showed an accurate arm, good command of the routes, hitting his receivers, even drew some compliments from Eli Drinkwitz. On one particular play, Pine found running back Nate Noel on a corner route over the top of linebacker Tristan Newsom for a 20-yard completion, and dropped another accurate ball over the top to the left sideline in a similar spot for freshman tight end Jude James. And then on Thursday, completed passes on slant, flat routes through tight coverage to freshman wide receivers James Madison and Cordy Crutchfield. So Drew Pine, look, got to have a reliable backup quarterback in this league. And as good as Brady Cook is, if he gets injured or hurt for any games, they might have to lean on Drew Pine to fill those shoes. By the way, as for kicker at Mizzou, Blake Craig, the likely place kicker replacing Harrison Mevis this season, also appears to have been tabbed to take kickoffs for Missouri this year as well. Over at Tennessee, they were working outside at the Haslam practice field on Thursday morning for their 7th fall practice. They are holding their first fall scrimmage tonight at Neyland Stadium, so Tennessee only working in shells, but the media was allowed to see much of the practice. Running backs Cam Selden and walk-on Jack Henry Jacobic were working in red non-contact uniforms. And wide receiver Chris Brazel, Dylan Sampson, and Braylon Staley were all limited to not go through all the drills. Brazel was also banged up during Wednesday's practice, but Sampson's limitations seemed very cautious, according to reports. Nico Iamaleava wasn't wildly inaccurate, but not sharp. It's just the dog days of fall camp. You're going to have some good days, some bad days. He missed Brew McCoy on a pair of passes to the sideline. But on defense, after having a red non-contact jersey on Wednesday, linebacker Arian Carter was back in his normal red jersey during practice. And, of course, all eyes on that star position in the secondary. Boo Carter and Christian Charles seem like the top contenders to win that job, but a lot of fans hoping the freshman Boo Carter can be that guy. Keep an eye on that. And there you have it. That's just some tidbits going on around fall camp as we get ready for the start of the season. It'll be here before we know it. All right, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, our conversation with Lyn Scarbrough of Lindy Sports. We'll talk all things SEC with Lyn coming up here in just a second. But first, this episode presented to you by our friends over at FanDuel. And look, all throughout the summer months, hopefully you guys have been taking advantage of all those great offers that FanDuel has been giving you. All summer long, FanDuel's been hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long at FanDuel. And they've got some week 0 and week 1 lines up there. And just to give you a couple, week 0, probably the best and only good game of week 0 coming up in just a couple weeks. It is Florida State versus Georgia Tech over in Dublin. They've got Florida State listed as a 12.5-point favorite. So look, if you like Georgia Tech, a program on the rise, if you think they can cover that 12.5 number, if you think that number's too high, if you like DJU heading over to Florida State and you think that offense is going to get back on track where Jordan Travis had it last year, maybe you take Florida State minus the 12.5. Whatever it is, look, it's going to be the one big game that first Saturday, week 0. Make sure you get in on the action and make that game a little bit more interesting to you and everybody else. Over at FanDuel, it is FanDuel.com. Head on over to FanDuel.com. Start making the most out of your summer and start getting ready for the start of the college football season. It is FanDuel. They are the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. It's FanDuel.com.
Always fun to come to SEC Media Days. Always fun to catch up with our buddy Lyn Scarbrough of Lindy's Sports. And I've got my magazine sitting there right at the end of the table there. It is that time of year.
We appreciate that.
Always one of the best when it comes to getting ready for the college football season. And Lyn, I got to ask you, I don't think I've talked to you since this happened. Where were you when you heard Nick Saban was retiring?
I can't tell you where I was. I don't remember that. I know my thought on it was I'm not really surprised because I think the old veteran coaches that coached when there was not NIL and when there was not transfer portal and when you actually got a commitment from a player and it's most likely he was going to keep it, or if you had a good returning tight end and you were counting on him, you thought he'd probably come back. I think a lot of the stuff that are involved now that's changed the landscape of college football so much, and quite frankly, of amateur sports, basketball and other things too. But I don't really think I was surprised because he's more or less going out on top. I know he didn't win the last championship, but he still got them up in the hierarchy.
Right.
And can you be sure that that's going to stay with the way things are developing? So it didn't really surprise me.
It's fascinating, though, because I think we all agree he was definitely the greatest coach in college football in this era.
Yep,
greatest of all time. I think a lot of people would make that argument. But he leaves, and it's not just the SEC, it's the country now. I mean, it feels like it's Kirby Smart and everybody else. I mean, even Jim Harbaugh, who just won it at Michigan, jumps back to the NFL. So it feels like, man, if George and Kirby get this done this year, win it all, I mean, we're talking dynasty, and we're talking about maybe he makes a run for the next 15 years like Saban just had.
Well, we picked them number one this year. We picked Georgia number one. It'll be a great year for the SEC. We pick, I'm talking from memory, don't have the magazine in front of me, but we picked Texas number 3, Mississippi number 5, Alabama number 7, Missouri, who's on the podium right now as we're speaking, number 9. And we've got 9 of the 16 now SEC teams in the top 19 teams.
Wow.
So you go beyond half of the SEC, and you still got teams in the top 20. And so, it's going to be tough to hold that position. Georgia plays at Texas. They play at Alabama, and they play Ole Miss. That's number 3, number 5, and number 7, and they play number 3 and number 5 on the road. Georgia's really good, but you can have a really good team that doesn't win all its games. You've had a number of Southeastern Conference teams that have been national champion or play for national championships when they have not been undefeated. And so I'm going to stick with what Lindy's picks, which is what a lot of other people are going to pick. I'll take Georgia, but it will not surprise me. If they got 2 or 3 games, I think they could trip up.
It's a tough schedule, but I look at this. I mean, we know the defense is just loaded. Michael Williams, Malachi Starks. I mean, you run through the list. It's stud after stud after stud. But Georgia's one of the few teams in the SEC that brings back, we talk about continuity with coordinators. They bring back Mike Bobo with Carson Beck. I think there's something to be said where your head coach, OC, and starting quarterback are all back. That continuity carries over.
There's no question about it. And your veteran leadership, players that are coming back, particularly at quarterback, and your schedule. Who do you play? Where do you play them? And Georgia has a schedule that is difficult enough that if they run the table or go 11-1 and win the championship game, that's a strong enough resume with what the SEC is now to get them into the national championship picture. Their coaching staff is solid. They return a lot of people, and they got a quarterback that's in the running for the Heisman Trophy. So they've got the ingredients to be able to make a run at it. Will they? I don't know, but they've got the ingredients.
How good can Milroe be? I mean, Kalen DeBoer, the pressure's on. You get no transition year. Like,
That's
you got to
right.
win immediately.
That's right.
But how good do you think Milroe can be? We just saw Michael Penix look fantastic in the DeBoer system.
Yeah.
But what will Milroe look like?
Well, I think he'll be outstanding. I mean, he's got good natural ability. He's a good runner. He's got experience winning big ball games. He's got a good supporting cast. The offensive line is solid. They don't have the classic receivers they've had lately. They're not the best receiver class in the Southeastern Conference, but they're better than average. Their defense will be solid. You can make a case that because of the transfer portal that they now have the strongest kicking game in the conference by bringing in the guy. They got a Groza winner and a guy that led things in punting, and this is a situation where if they had not had the transfer portal, they wouldn't be in that position. The kicking game has not always been Alabama's strength. They've had some years when their place kicking and punting was below average, and it's cost them some games. Well, they've got that element this time. And so it's kind of like Georgia. They play a difficult enough schedule that it can give them the strength of schedule to win it, but they don't have Florida's schedule. Florida, Chris, may have the toughest schedule I've ever seen. I've been doing this more than 50 years. I've been with Lindy's for about 35 years, and I've looked back and tried to find a schedule as hard as Florida's, and I can't find one.
Why would you play Florida State every year? Why would you schedule Miami and UCF?
Boy, isn't that a great question?
Go schedule the Citadel and Samford.
I think they may play Samford, and I wouldn't.
Oh, that's right. They do play Samford.
And the thing is, Samford's got a pretty good team.
Yeah. I was trying to find some directional.
Right. No, I understand what you're saying.
Florida.
And your bookends are Florida State and Miami, both of whom Lindy has ranked in the top 20. You got Tennessee stuck in there. And I may not have the sequence right here, but you've got 5 games in a row without a break where they play Georgia, Mississippi. Help me.
Yeah, the last 5-6 are absolutely just brutal.
Well, the last 5 games don't even have a break in between them.
Yeah.
You're talking about playing Mothers of the Poor. They play at Georgia, which is an away ball game.
Yeah.
Is it Texas? They play away, and then they got a couple of games at home. But those games at home are Ole Miss, who we got number 5 in the country, and another SEC team we got ranked. They play Kentucky, who we got them 11th in the SEC, I believe. But this year, 11th in the SEC can be a better than average team.
Right.
And then they close with Florida State, who's getting it back. And I tell you, I get a vote for one of the Coach of the Year things, and if Napier could win 8 or 9 ball games,
Coach of the Year.
He's Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
I don't care if somebody else goes undefeated and wins the national championship. If you go through that schedule and you can win 8 or 9 games, I vote for you.
Send them to a New Year's Six Bowl if that happens.
Yeah, really.
Talking to Lyn Scarbrough of Lindy Sports. Is Hugh Freeze making a mistake putting all his chips on Peyton Thorne? Or do we see a great Peyton Thorne?
Here's the thing. If he sticks with him and he's doing bad or he's doing mediocre, then he's probably
It wasn't great last
year.
But
here's the deal. Is Auburn's got a favorable schedule on the front end of the schedule. They open, and it's all, I'm not putting down, I know we probably got Arkansas fans in the audience, but by the last week of September, they will have already played California from the Pac-12, who they could lose, but they beat them at California last year, and California's not Southern Cal. They got Arkansas, who is picked in the lower group of the SEC, and they've got 2 games that they automatically should win. All right, if they're 4-0 going into the Oklahoma game, which is September 28th, and it's Oklahoma's first SEC road game.
Yeah.
And they play at Auburn. Well, if Peyton has been good enough to get them to 5-0, then the next week they go to Georgia. And so let's see what happens.
Played them close last year.
Yeah. Well, they came within 2-3 minutes of beating.
You were there, right?
Yeah.
Should have beaten.
They should have beaten them.
Brock Bowers. Covered.
Look, Chris, Brock Bowers may be the best tight end I've ever seen play in person, and I've seen some great tight ends.
Pitts was pretty good at Florida too.
You can name a lot of good tight ends, but Bowers had just had an average ball game. until about the last 4 minutes of that ball game. And Georgia didn't have a long touchdown drive.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, it became, okay, Bowers, wherever you are, we're going to throw you the ball. And that's basically what it turned out to be, and they won the ball game. And, of course, they came within 15 seconds or 18 seconds or whatever of beating Alabama.
Yep.
And then the next week they turn around and lose to New Mexico State.
Right.
So how do you figure these things
out?
out?
And now half that crew is going over to Vanderbilt.
Yeah,
so
I just don't know how you figure it. That's a strange deal. But if Peyton Thorne comes out of Oklahoma at 5-0, no, he didn't make a mistake. But he's got 2 or 3 guys that are pretty good behind him. Walker White was a top 10 quarterback in the country last year, coming in from Arkansas. I think he was Player of the Year in Arkansas. He's probably got more natural ability, but I would go with a guy that's been a starter at 2 Power 5 teams.
We will see, and of course, if things go south, we'll see hot seat for Hugh Freeze.
It would be.
Hey, more with Lyn Scarbrough here in just a second, but want to remind you guys this episode presented to you by our friends over at Gametime. Gametime is the authorized ticket marketplace or an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. It makes getting tickets easier and faster, and prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer you get to first pitch. And they've got those killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime is going to take the guesswork out of you buying whatever it is, Major League Baseball tickets, college football tickets, NFL, whatever it is. You check it out. And of course, they got the lowest price guarantee. Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference if you find something better. Gametime ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. And then, of course, Seat Views. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know what to expect before you purchase and you show up to the stadium. All-in pricing, that's my favorite feature. Toggle that and shows the total up front. No surprise fees at checkout. You can even link it to your Apple Pay. Bing, bang, boom, 2 clicks. You're done. You got your tickets, and you're ready to go to the game. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets or college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app today. Create an account. Use our code LOCKEDONCollege. Get $20 off your purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account. Redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
If I gave you this option, Tennessee, LSU, Texas A&M, if one of those teams surprised this year, who would you say is the most likely to sneak up and maybe compete for an SEC title this year?
Probably Texas A&M. But I think all 3 of them have got the possibility. LSU opens with Southern Cal.
Yeah. 3
weeks later, they play UCLA. And then they've got their normal stuff, Mississippi and Alabama and so on. And they close with Oklahoma. That's a tough schedule. Nussmeier may be the answer. But, the deal that we were saying a minute ago, your upper-class leadership, particularly your quarterback, if he's proven, and who you're playing, where do you play them? Well, that's 5 tough ball games. They don't jump in by playing some directional school. They're going out playing in the Coliseum against Southern Cal. And if LSU were to win that ball game, then, yeah, they're looking to beat UCLA, beat the 2 new Big Ten teams. Yeah. Then they're in pretty good shape. If they were to lose either of those games, particularly if they lost both of them, so they're sitting there at 2-2, which is possible.
Right.
Then you got to, because you don't have Daniels at quarterback, you got Nussmeier.
But I think the offense is going to be good. The defense was abysmal at LSU. That's got to be better.
I agree with that. And I think they got good defensive players. I mean, we got LSU picked in the top 15, I believe, and I think we've got them where they ought to be.
Yeah.
If they don't have a good year, I'll be surprised. But with a non-proven veteran quarterback and the schedule they've got, that could be tough. Tennessee, I think they could be better than average. Again, we put them in the top 20 as well.
Can you pronounce the quarterback's name?
No. No. And what I would have said if you let me go would be, they've got a quarterback who's pretty good.
You just call him Nico.
Yeah, there you go.
Nico's really good.
Yeah, whatever these guys that have nicknames, I try to pick up on their nicknames. And but they have had so many teams in the last 10 or 15 years that on paper have looked good. And you get into the schedule, and they lose games, there is no way that you think they'll be leading toward the end and have some weird freak of nature happen and they lose the game.
Yep.
And I know Tennessee fans that are saying, okay, we're waiting for the shoe to drop. You know, here you go again, picking us high. Thanks a whole lot. We'll end up losing 5 games or something. But no, I think they're good. In fact, I think all 3 teams that you named have a shot. But I like Kentucky. Hey, South Carolina's going to be a decent team. You know, hey, Auburn's got good players. But, you know, are they going to win at Georgia, at Alabama, Oklahoma coming in that first time? Are they going to win that? That's mighty tough.
Be tough. All right, last thing for you. Talking with Lyn Scarbrough of Lindy Sports, Texas and Oklahoma. Will they struggle with the transition to a new conference? I mean, this isn't Baylor and Kansas. This is the SEC.
Right. Well, I was talking to one of the Oklahoma stations earlier, and they said, well, you know, we'll lose ball games, and on paper, Texas will look better than us, and we win the ball game. It's my perception, and I have not checked the numbers to know if this is accurate, but my perception is that Oklahoma in the last couple of decades has probably won more games against Texas that they shouldn't have won, or at least on paper shouldn't have won, that Texas has upset or beaten Oklahoma and so how's it going to go this year? I think you're going to know real early. You know, Texas has got some tough early ball games. If Oklahoma goes 4-0, goes to Auburn and wins, I know it's not going to be a great Auburn team, but they're not a bad team. If they can go to a traditional Power 5 and win on the road with 90,000 people and they're against them, then that puts them at 5-0.
Right.
Then
they open with Tennessee in the SEC. So if they win that one and then win at Auburn, Oklahoma's off and running.
Oklahoma's off and running. On the other hand, if they come out of September already having 2 losses, and they've still got the guys they got to play, then it's going to be a rough season for them.
I've made it a case. I think there's a good chance LSU and Oklahoma go into that last week of the season, both 9-2. It's a de facto playoff game because the winner of that game, 10-2, and they're in the playoff.
No, that could happen. In fact, I think with a 12-team playoff, and I'll admit, I would have preferred an 8-team playoff than a 12. I didn't like a 4. I thought it was inherently flawed, but we've got 12. That's what we're going to live with.
Yep.
And I'll be surprised if at least 3 Southeastern Conference teams are not in that 12.
It should be 3. It should be at least 3. 4 or 5 is going to be tough because we're doing the stupid automatic. You win your conference, you move to the front of the line.
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep.
Then we got best group of 5 team like Liberty. It would have been last year. I don't know.
Well, and here's the thing: have you looked at Liberty's schedule?
No, but it's easy, right?
We could pick you and I and 9 other people here in front of us on Radio Row, and we could give most teams on Liberty's schedule a pretty good ball game.
Okay.
They play the 2 best teams. They have no strong non-conference teams. They play Appalachian State, who's probably the best non-conference team that they play, and I don't really know if this is a classically good Appalachian State team or not. Western Kentucky, we've got ranked 2nd, and Jacksonville State, we got ranked 3rd. But I believe they play both of those games at Liberty, and they got a good team. And if it's still the deal, and I'm going to be interested to see how the 12 teams work, but if it is still the deal that the highest ranked group of 5 or whatever you want to call it team still makes the playoffs.
Yeah.
I can't see Liberty if Liberty loses a game, it's going to be an upset, and it will be one of the more significant upsets in the country. And I just can't see it being a team except Liberty. Now, you know, maybe
Fresno State was a sexy team, but Jeff Tedford just stepped away.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
We'll see what happens.
Yep, no, I agree. I do like the fact that the quote lesser teams can have a chair at the table, having 12 teams. But now, you know, you could end up with a pretty good team knocked out this year because Liberty wins all their games.
Forget them. Let's put 5, 6 SEC teams.
Look, I'm an SEC guy. So, I've been an SEC guy all my life. So
Liberty get their ass kicked by Georgia. All right. He is Lyn Scarbrough from Lindy Sports. Lyn, always good to catch up, man.
All right, Chris.
All right, more right after this. All right, thanks again to Lyn Scarbrough for joining us. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Hey, for your second listen, check out the Locked On College Football podcast. Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron with discussion on the upcoming season, the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, conference realignment, transfer portal, NIL, expanded playoffs, all of that. Locked On College Football available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. covering your team every day. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you on Monday, where we're one step closer to the start of an SEC football season.